Alright everybody, so what we're going to do on this video is give you the basic demonstration of the Gurgler. There's a lot of variations to this. You can tie it in quite a few sizes. I'm going to use a Mustad streamer hook size 6, 5 long. Just because they're handy, I got a bunch of them. These could also be really effective for things like bluegills and stuff like that. So it's going to wind up looking something like this. I'm grabbing it by the tail, obviously, but and there's a bunch of different add-ons you can do to this one as well. But you can tie this down to, geez, if you get real good at it, maybe like a 14, like 3 long or something like that. So that might be a bit small. But anyway, so we'll start. So when we start this, we can just start our thread in the middle. And I'm going to kind of gap space this out. I like to go back to right about the hook point. Normally I'm all about going back to the barb. I just don't like to do that on this pattern. So when selecting your bucktail, this is one of those patterns where you can kind of take it from wherever. If you get into tying those big bulky streamers where you want this hollow point hair towards the ass of the deer, save that and take something from up here. This is going to be it's kind of like a popper slash slider lizard. It could probably be mistaken as a lot of things. I got some feedback from some guys that said they actually use them for like a shrimp imitation too, which I thought was pretty interesting, seeing as how it stays on top of the water. But hey, it is what it is, right? So I just trimmed out my bucktail, and I'm just kind of cleaning it out here and getting all the under junk out, because we don't want that. If you want to stack it, you can. Not really necessary. So what I like to do is I like to go on these about 1.5, roughly 1.5 hook shank length. So I've got about 1.25 there. So I'll line that up. Oops, got some stuff falling out there. Add my extra quarter there, and we want this. It's falling apart on me. There we go. Maybe just a touch longer. Anyway, we want this to be on top of the hook shank. So when you put it on top of the hook shank, pinch it down tight with your left, your right thumb, right finger if you're right-handed, and then transfer it to your left hand. And I kind of pull this hair up a little bit when I pinch it on top, just to help reinforce that it's on top. Now I'm going to do one in the middle, one in front, one to the rear. I'm going to pull down. I'm going to lift up and slide that thread underneath, pull it tight. Now I've got that guy really locked in place. I've got a bunch of this wobbly stuff up front, and that's okay. I'm going to wrap this forward using tight turns and just let it all encompass and surround the hook shank here. You don't have to have touching turns. I typically use touching turns on a lot of this stuff, but whatever. So when you get to, I don't know, I got about a 1/4 inch wrapped in there or so on this long guy. I'm going to pull all this up, and the goal here is, where's my bodkin, is I want to leave about a 1/4 inch or so from where this is cut off to where the back of the eye is. So I want to cut it right about here. And if you don't get it perfect on the first one, I'm going to get a different pair of scissors. If you don't get it perfect on the first one, don't worry about it. It's better to get this one a little long cut and come back and retrim it than it is to get it a little short, just because I think it messes with your underbody a bit, and that's probably just a touch long. You know what? I cut it off pretty well, so I'll just go with it. Probably just a little bit longer than I normally would do on this, but let me just finish wrapping that up. Nice. And you can see how I'm holding it with my left thumb and left index in the back. That's just to help give it some stability so that shank isn't moving all wonky on me. And we're just about done. But by all means, you don't need to wrap it tight like this. You know, a bunch of wraps just kind of like this will work, you know, where you cross it over or whatever. I'm just a huge proponent of building nice underbodies. Nice underbodies tend to lead to nice looking flies. Maybe not so much on this guy, but anyway. So now I'm going to work this thing back, just quick like, all the way to where I originally started. Next, we want to get some crystal flash, and what I've got here is 3 full pieces of the crystal flash. These come out to roughly 14 inches in length, and so I'll take them and I'll pinch them and divide them so that they come out to about even on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but they're pretty close, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'll kind of come in and I'll do one of these numbers. I don't know, it's like a pinch and loop. I don't know what you call that. But you make a loop, you cut it in half, and then you do it again. And the reason for this is going to provide our flash for the tail, as well as these 3 little feet, and well, actually it'd be 6 little feet that we're going to add on either side. So once you have it there, you can kind of just I know it's out of camera and you can't see it, but it's a little bit long here. That's okay. You can trim it off later. Now the way I like to tie this in is I don't like to put it in and start wrapping it around. Just bring your material on the back side of the thread, lift and pull into place, and set it on top of your hook shank. And now you can add a wrap just to kind of lock it in, secure it for a second. If you want to, I know you can't see it, but if you want to not have these so long, this is hanging out the back here. I'll just slide it over so you can see a little bit. So this is hanging out the back of my bucktail by, I don't know, this one piece is probably maybe 2 inches out the back. If you want to trim that down, this is the time to trim that down. I guess you could trim it down later, but I prefer to do it now. So you're going to take your thumb and kind of pinch and work it and splay these guys so they kind of splay along the top. Once you have them kind of where you want them, we're going to wrap it in again. Now we're going to take all this extra that we had up front, I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to put a couple wraps in. They don't have to be perfect, but they do need to be there. Now for your foam, because this floats, right? So you need a pretty good sized piece of foam here. You want to have it maybe a little bit bigger than the hook gap here. Something about that size. This is just a good gauge. So whatever size hook you end up using, like say it's a 12, or in this case a 6, this is going to get you the width that you want your foam, or pretty darn close. Then on the other side, what I've done is I've cut this down to a little point. This is going to be our tie-in point, and it's going to go right up front here. So for this size 6, I'll show you here. What do I got? I got a right about 3 inches, which is going to be just about right. You can go longer. So next I'm going to just kind of bring this thread up. And the goal here is where you make kind of your pizza pie cuts. You want to have some sort of nice length here so that you can wrap all this in on the top side of the shank real well. But where you make these little pie cuts, or right about there, you can see how I've got it, the long piece just to the right of the back side. And that's kind of where you want it, because we want the full width here. Full width here of this distance on the piece of foam that you cut. We want that fully to be exposed when we pull it over. That's a good way to do it. So I'm going to you can see where I'm kind of lining that up at. So I'm about, I don't know, eighth of an inch or so to the front. So this lines out pretty well for me where I normally like it. If not, trim the front to get it there. So next we're just gonna kind of go back real gently. We're gonna check it. We want to make sure that this part stays on top, like so. And we don't have to be wrapping it in super cool. So what we're going to do is to check is you're going to pull this over to make sure that nothing back here is exposed. You want all this thread back where my fingernail is covered up. If it's not covered up, you need to go back. You know, and we want to try to get this square. You want your foam as square as possible off the back side. So it's something similar to that. My thread just pulled forward, but I think you'll get the idea here. I can put another one in. There we go. So you can kind of see how this is square. I've got an even distance on both sides running off the back. When I pull this forward, all that's exposed is that bucktail, right? All that thread has been concealed. And what I like to do is just kind of cross wrap it forward, cross wrap it back. Some of you are probably saying, can you use glue here? Yes, you can. You need to be aware of what different glues will do to styrofoam. Or not styrofoam, but foam. Some really abrasive glues, some super glues especially, will literally eat that foam. Or eat into it. So be aware of that. So there's several things you can do here. You can do a flash underbody. Say you wanted to add, where is it? I got it out just to show you. I'm not going to put this on right now, but you could add like a, here, I'll take it out so you can see it. You could add a like sparkly chenille underbody or something like that if you wanted to. Okay. You don't have to. A lot of people do. Okay. So you can definitely do that, and I'll show you when you tie that in. It'll be in a minute. So next, what you need is hackle. Okay, so this is a saddle. It's a big saddle. Whatever you have works. Just you want to make sure it's kind of a saddle cape. So you're going to get some nice big barbulate turns is what you're looking for. You can use one feather. If you're going to do a flash underbody, only use one feather. If you're not going to do a flash underbody, then I would suggest doing two. And sorry, I'm trying to sort through them here. I know you can't see that. Maybe one of these days we'll add an extra camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing on the side. But right now I'm just kind of going through my feathers, trying to find something that's long enough. Typically on something like this, for this length of a hook shank, I need something that's like 6 inches of usable feather. It's going to be a little thinner than I want. I guess I gotta make a decision here at some point. Yeah, that bug's not coming back. He just got zapped. Okay, I like this one. Do I have a marrying feather with that? Oh, he's pretty close. We'll take these two. Okay. Sorry, probably should have prepped that first, but I don't do that stuff very often, so I just kind of roll with it. So what you can see here is I've got two feathers. Don't worry if you got some stuff like this where it's been nipped off by whatever, don't worry about that. These are definitely webbier feathers. Webbier meaning like they stick together, right? So you got to pull it out. Yeah, so that's what we're going to use. So anyway, now what I'll do is I'll line up the tips pretty close, and I'm going to draw all this feather back so it does this, just like this, because I want that displayed, or so that I can see what's going to happen as I wrap this and kind of gauge where my short part of my feather is going to be, and give myself enough barbulate length on either side. So next what I'll do is I'll kind of decide that, and you got to decide this too. This is something I can't decide for you. It's going to depend on what size hook shank you're going to use and whatever, how long of a distance you're going to need. So what I do is I actually tie these guys on top. And I'm just going to run my thread forward on top. Just kind of capturing them in. If you got to pull it back on top, do that. I just like it on top because it's going to get concealed easier. You'll be able to manipulate the extra feathers or the extra barbulates that are coming off either, or easier. If you do have a bunch of this stuff that's coming out the bottom, you know, I typically kind of just trim that down a little bit just so it doesn't foul me up as I'm wrapping. It doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't need to be smooth, but I do kind of like to have those out of there just a fuzz so that they're not full length. Alright, so next what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap these guys at the same time. I gotta move back. So if your feather does this, that's no big deal, and it gets the twist in it and everything. Just untwist it, take your time, take your left thumb, left index, pull everything back, make another wrap around. A lot of the time this will start to stop doing that. The other part of the time it won't, and you're going to have to just kind of continuously do that. And don't be afraid to jump just a little bit. These do not need to be touching turns. Ooh, am I going to make it? Nope. I'm going to have to space those out just a touch more, especially towards the back here. Okay. Now you're probably looking at this saying, boy, now you've got some gaps in there. How am I going to fix that? Don't worry about it. I'll show you why in a minute. Yep. There we go. Okay. So, kind of in essence there, it almost looks like a woolly bugger, right? That's kind of true. So I do a couple turns over the back side of this feather here, bring it down and around, and then I pull this back as you just saw, and I'll put some more wraps, and I'm going to take these wraps and I'm just going to start going back with them because I want to capture these stems. And then I'll switch it back and pull those forward and put some more on top, and I'll do it again. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until you've got it all nice and locked into place. So for this guy, I'm actually using a, you can't see it, it's the orange label, which means it's 6/0 uni thread. And I think 6/0 uni thread works pretty well here. You can use what you got. If you know, again, if you're going to tie a size 10 or 14 or something, do not use 6/0, use 8/0. You're going to have a hell of a time. Take my fingernail clippers, clip out that stem. Now I'm going to kind of tighten this up, lock all that in, so I've got something that looks like that. Okay? Cool. So next I'm going to take and wet my fingers. I'm going to grab and pull all this stuff down. And kind of tease it to the bottom. I'm going to pull that foam directly over the top, just like that. So now I've got all that stuff hanging out on the bottom. Make sure when you do this and you tie this foam off that you're square, or pretty darn close to square, because with foam you only get one chance to do it because you'll put these little indentations in there like so, and once you see I'm even a little out of square. Luckily on this pattern it doesn't matter too much, but once that indentation's in there, that's it. That's all you get. Okay, so now I've got a few over the top. We'll do a few in front. I'll jump back to on top. Now we want to take these leftover guys in the back. And the reason that we use 3 and cut them in half is because that's going to give us 6. So I want 3 on each side. We're going to divide those. Maybe I should have cut that tail a little shorter so I didn't have to like pick through this to find out what's what. Oh well. So what do I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now I'm going to literally take these and run them directly across the back. Reach behind, grab my thread. Secure them with 1 wrap. 2 wraps. That's it. That's all we need for right here. Now, to the best of your ability, kind of determine which 3 want to go which way. Sorry, my fingers are in the way, I know. But which 3 want to go which way, and you're going to pull them to that side. And then what I will do is I will draw them, let me turn it around again. I will draw these to the bottom and hang them down at a 45-degree angle going that way, and I will add a wrap right on top, if not just to the back side a little bit, and then another one. And now from the bottom side I can actually pull these guys apart and bring them back up to the sides. I'm grabbing these. I'm holding both sets of 3 to either side. I'm going to put a couple more wraps in there. And now these should be kind of hanging out the side. Kind of like so. Pretty good. We'll take that. We're almost done. So next we're going to take this front piece of foam. We're going to fold it over. I like to come out about, I don't know, 1/4 inch maybe or so out in front of that hook point. Fold it over. Make sure your foam's all lined up when you do this. So I do 1 turn, pull down. Okay, and I'm going to add a couple more. Each time you do this, the thread, your foam's going to want to turn. I will take my thread, put it up underneath. I'll do this a couple times each way. And now we can actually whip finish this guy, if I can find it. So when you whip finish this, get your whip finisher lined up like so. Take your finger, pull it back. You see I'm pulling the thread so that the thread moves into position. I'll do that one more time, so if you guys are a little slow on that, I know this is kind of a trick for some people. So I'm like way out here, right? And I pull my thread and it lines that up. I think the first shot was better, but okay. Now you come here and trim that out. There we go. Alright, so now you should have something that looks like this. Alright. You can leave this on here if you want. Some guys actually come in and put a whole separate color in up top. What I do is I come in, I just leave that the way it is and cut this guy kind of square like that. Alright, and now we want to trim our feet because we don't want our feet that long. So what I'll do is I'll pull these guys straight down once again, and I'll come down about 1/4 inch, or maybe depending on how long this hackle is, just line it up right with that bottom, and I'll just trim that out the way, and I'll pull them up to the side, kind of splay them out like so. Oh, I missed that one. He got away from me. That's all right. Now that one's a little longer. No big deal. So if you're going to use super glue, what I do, since the super glue that I use kind of can destroy that foam, is I come in underneath and I'll put it right in on the thread there. let it soak up, so that way your foam is getting minimal exposure to the super glue. Kind of draw these guys down, and I'll zoom out a little bit, and there you go. That's your gurgler. So you can do these in a ton of colors. You can change this crystal flash up for Flashaboo. You can add a separate colored piece of foam up top here. Obviously you can change your body colors. You can actually, instead of doing double hackle underneath, you can put some sort of chenille or whatever you want, ice dubbing or whatever. So that's it. That's the way you do it. And there you go. It's a cool little pattern. So I guess in this case it's kind of a cool big pattern. But if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share, and we'll see you guys next time.